Once we have started with local language and songs, let us continue the Synod prayer infante. Ejan Oban and Yusum Kronkron itinim Iradi Nyankupon Uba Hene Radi Jesus Christ shared Wombo wasam de Wiazin Fidan Denina Asmafun Nya Asofpon Isafun Amfajidin and Tashiju Funkum Umbum was the Tashi Amanaman name. Yedawasi Dena wasam Pado Bofu Tijin Juru Ghana or Umbirpim. And fe aha ni Donani and a Wumba Yewo Ghana. Nam hena brabodu etumpon wejidinum. Ekoturu bokoa onye yenti. Yes or strow de. Bera yeriti hen synoda otie bieni. Boahen mayen bosho de nkrofoa we numba na was mahen de young kobo jizin de wuru entre amanamen yina. Mahen can shrine. Amenyam akawudin kron kron. Besides, Yanam Hene Brady Jesus Christ do any ebisau. Honor no Nisum kron kron, it's as it's hen, Yankuponker, Mbera onye on Yaho. And as a fubebu Mary, Christian fu homboafu, Kodoya saw my hen and the new day in Hotu ni Joseph. Assaulto no Chuchejini, I saw my hand on Yeho. A Jen Oban on Yususum Kron its name. Baptized and saint. Baptized and saint. Akukudrufu. 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 Ayi in Jesus Christ. This morning, during the talks and the discussions and reports that we went through, one theme kept coming up. It ran through everything we did this morning, and that was education, formation, ongoing formation, all on the same line or in the same direction. Fortunately for us, this afternoon our session will take into account this basic theme. And as we know, the Catholic Church and education, the two go together. And we have the experience here in our archdiocese that the faith and education travel together. And so it is also apt that this afternoon we address this topic. So our topic for the fifth talk will be renewing our mission for Catholic education in the Archdiocese of Cape Coast amidst present-day challenges. So we had to look for somebody to chair this afternoon's event. And of course, it is in education. So where can we go except to look for some of the general managers of education and one with great experience, a good Catholic, a member of the OLA parish, very, very important also. When we talk of education in the Archdiocese of Cape Coast, the name we don't have to forget is OLA, Our Lady of Apostles. And a Marshalland, so a defender of the faith in addition. So this afternoon, Mrs. Doris Eshen will chair the event for us. Thank you. Please take your seat. Mama, welcome. Great. The chairperson is a seat, so we can call upon the one to deliver this talk. The planners of the Synod decided not to go too far, nor too deep. Take a young man with understanding of the issues of today, someone who is well versed in theology and also with the issues of education. So we went to take one of our own from the University of Education, Winneba, where he is also involved with the issues of education and being part of this diocese understands the dynamics. So, Reverend Father Dr. Anthony Adew, please. Thank you, Father. So now, Madam Chair, I will hand over to you.
Thank you, Father. As we've been told, the topic is renewing our mission for Catholic education in the Archdiocese of Cape Coast amidst present-day challenges. With the mention of education, so many questions, so many reactions, so many actions. I can just imagine when you break into your various groups, the reactions and actions that will take place. I would like to say that I do accept to chair the program, and I'm asking all of us to help so that the discussions would move smoothly for us all to benefit. Let us all be very attentive as we listen to the speaker deliver his speech. Thank you very much.
Mrs. Chairperson, Your Excellencies, Most Reverend Charles Gabriel Palmer Barkle, the Metropolitan Archbishop of Cape Coast, Most Reverend Matthias Kobina Nketia, our beloved Emeritus, and my dear brothers and sisters of this historic assembly. I am grateful for the opportunity to share a few thoughts on renewing our mission of Catholic education in the Archdiocese of Cape Coast. It is my fervent hope that the thoughts I share with you will engender more conversations, help generate ideas, and inspire real action in getting the work done. This presentation is divided into 3 parts. We can phrase these parts as 3 questions. What is the mission of Catholic education? What challenges militate against this mission? How do we renew this mission amidst these challenges? First part, what is the mission of Catholic education? Let me begin with the words of Pope St. John Paul II. He says, in addition to the personal testimony of faith and holiness for which individual believers are responsible by virtue of their baptism, the Church is also called to give an important institutional testimony before the world. For this reason, the risen Lord's command to make disciples of all nations and to teach them to carry out everything I have commanded you must be the indispensable reference point for every activity of the Church. Her many religious, educational, and charitable institutions exist for one reason only: to proclaim the gospel. The witness must always proceed ex corde ecclesiae, from the very heart of the Church. It is of utmost importance, therefore, that the Church's institutions be genuinely Catholic, Catholic in their self-understanding and Catholic in their identity. Pope St. John Paul II addressed this message to the bishops of the provinces of Portland in Oregon, Seattle, and Anchorage on June 24, 2004, during their ad limina visit. His words capture and show the profound connection between the theme of the Synod and this afternoon's topic. The mandate of the Lord, namely, to make disciples of all nations, to teach, and to carry out all that he commanded us, compels both personal and institutional testimony. It gives the baptized their vocation and mission to give personal testimony of faith and holiness, and serves as the foundation and reason for the existence of the Church's institutions, including her educational institutions. We can describe this as an integrity of mission, a consistency of mission at the personal and institutional levels. Catholic educational institutions, because their witnessing necessarily proceeds from the heart of the Church, have the same mission as the Church: to proclaim the gospel. To accomplish this mission, the Catholic educational institutions in the Archdiocese of Cape Coast and in Ghana as a whole have to remain and operate as genuinely Catholic. The mission will be severely impaired if Catholic educational institutions lose sight of their identity, or if they develop an identity crisis. One wonders if this has not happened already. Reflecting on the words of St. John Paul II, Sir Fuswaba Mensah Banahene published an article in the Daily Graphic in 2012, asking whether we have Catholic schools in Ghana today. His focus was on the nature of a Catholic school identity, on what makes a Catholic school Catholic. Mensah Banahene outlined 5 essentials of Catholic school identity. First, Catholic schools are inspired by a supernatural vision. This hallmark underscores the Church's understanding of education as formation of people to be good citizens of their country and the world, while loving God and their neighbor and enriching society with the leaven of the gospel. This supernatural aspect of a Catholic school's identity is the fulcrum around which all other hallmarks revolve and should not be sacrificed for any other good. Second, Catholic education perfects the natural dimension. It provides for the intellectual, moral, and emotional well-being of students so that they become fully human, exercising their best potential and talent for the common good. Third, a Catholic school should have an identity of community and communion. It must exemplify a group driven by faith and who do things in common, setting themselves in the nature of family. This situation calls for teamwork and collaboration, not only among teachers and between teachers and students, but also between members of the school and the leadership of the church. Fourth, the curriculum of a Catholic school should reflect a Catholic worldview and ethos. That is to say, the spirit of Catholicism should permeate the curriculum. The curriculum should depict integral development of the student intellectually, physically, morally, and religiously as espoused by the church. Central to such a curriculum is the pursuit of truth and the demonstration of love. Fifth, a Catholic school creates an atmosphere of gospel witnessing. It upholds the clarity of the church's faith and demonstrates an unflinching commitment to living exemplary lives. In the light of the above analysis, can we say that we have Catholic schools in Ghana today? Sir Fosuaba Mensah Banahene answered the question in the negative. According to him, we used to have Catholic schools in the past, but what we have today are schools named Catholic. He explained that the church's schools are no longer Catholic schools because they are no longer owned by the church. Essentially, they are public schools. Either by default or overarching power, our schools have long slipped into the welcoming hands of public entities that have no motivation or intention to maintain the Catholicity of these schools. I disagree with the categorical negative response, especially because such a response ignores the reality of continuity in Catholic education in Ghana and the impact Catholic education still makes on individuals, families, the church, and on the nation. It also overlooks the complexity of the different contextual factors that influence how we understand, propose, and practice Catholic education. The negative response also fails to acknowledge the different efforts at play in ensuring the existence and thriving of Catholic schools. However, it would be an unfortunate decision to just dismiss his response and analysis. Such an outright dismissal could prove detrimental to Catholic education in the Archdiocese of Cape Coast and in Ghana. In other words, there are several reasons why we should take his analysis seriously. One main reason is the deep connection his analysis has with the magisterium. Sir Fosuaba Mensah Banahene's 5 essentials of Catholic school identity find deep roots in the church's understanding of education, especially as expressed in the Declaration on Christian Education, Gravissimum Educationis. In this authoritative document on Catholic education, Pope Paul VI expressed the urgency to educate young people and to continue the education of adults. He commended the great efforts being made to obtain education for all, even though vast numbers of children and young people are still deprived of even rudimentary training, and so many others lack a suitable education in which truth and love are developed together. Paul VI also emphasizes that the baptized, in addition to receiving a general education, have a right to a Christian education, which is also open to all people who freely choose to participate in it. He says this: a Christian education does not merely strive for the maturing of a human person, but has as its principal purpose this goal, that the baptized, while they are gradually introduced to the knowledge of the mystery of salvation, become ever more aware of the gift of faith they have received. According to the Pope, parents are the primary and principal educators of their children. They must create a family atmosphere animated by love and respect for God and for others. The family, as the first school of the social virtues that every society needs, has the responsibility to foster in children the well-rounded personal and social education of children. Different social actors support the family in its educational duties. Two of these actors are civil society and, of course, the church. Civil society has the duty to promote the education of youth in many ways, namely, to protect the duties and rights of parents and others who share in education and to give them aid. And according to the principle of subsidiarity, when the endeavors of parents and other societies are lacking, to carry out the work of education in accordance with the wishes of the parents. And moreover, as the common good demands, to build schools and institutions. This duty is not to be restricted to only public schools. Rather, in partnership with parents and other social actors, civil society should seek to support all children and all parents who alone have the right to choose where and how their children should be educated. In her support of parents in their children's education, the church is bound as a mother to give to these children of hers an education by their whole life, by which their whole life can be imbued with the Spirit of Christ, and at the same time do all she can to promote for all peoples the complete perfection of the human person, the good of earthly society, and the building of a world that is more human. Part 2. What challenges militate against this mission? In carrying out the duties and responsibilities that our mission imposes on us, Catholic schools have to contend with the challenges and opportunities that result from the presence of non-Catholics who come to study or work in Catholic schools. To these brothers and sisters, Catholic schools have the responsibility to ensure academic excellence and character formation and the creation of a conducive atmosphere to study and work, something I believe we do very well. Catholic schools also have a responsibility to create an atmosphere that supports religious dialogue and the spiritual growth of all those who freely choose to study or work in our midst. Care must be taken, however, that in the practice of dialogue and support for all, the Church's own principles and goals for Catholic education do not get thrown out. On their part, the non-Catholics in our schools have the duty to respect Catholic values and teachings, to embrace all that nourishes the human person, and where they disagree with the true tenets of the Catholic intellectual, moral, and spiritual tradition, to seek clarification through genuine inquiry. A concrete example is about religious practices in Catholic schools. There have been increasing demands for unregulated religious practices in Catholic and other mission schools in recent times. And sometimes these demands are made with unwarranted threats of sanction. In 2015, the Bishops' Conference, observing such development with grave concern, joined the Christian Council of Ghana to call for dialogue to resolve these issues. They assured heads of Catholic educational institutions to remain resolute and not feel unduly intimidated by threats of sanction, and expected the heads to continue to manage our schools in ways and practices that are in conformity with our church and our identity and mission. The bishops also called on government and all persons to refrain from issuing statements on making pronouncements which may not help in finding a peaceful resolution. This specific example provides a window into the nature of partnership between the church and state in delivering education to the citizens of our beloved country. This partnership continues to be a major challenge to Catholic education in the Archdiocese of Cape Coast and in Ghana. So I address it as one of the major challenges, major problems. The church's partnership with the government in delivering education goes back to pre-independence times. However, there was no formal agreed upon document to solidify the partnership. And so things were in fluid, if you like. The Ministry of Education in October 1999 approved recommendations from the Ghana Education Service Council on the right of education unit to manage and supervise educational institutions established and developed by their respective religious bodies in partnership with the government. So we have the right. There is every reason to make this partnership work. The Catholic Church is second only to the government in the delivery of education in the country. Currently, the church in Ghana has over 1,200 kindergartens, over 2,000 primary schools, close to 1,000 junior high schools, 62 senior high schools, 61 vocational and technical schools, 15 colleges of education, 4 university colleges, and 2 institutes of pastoral or continuous formation. And here I have not even mentioned our major seminaries. However, the partnership has not always been fruitful. Sir Mensah Banahini makes a true statement when he points out that this partnership is fraught with frustration, particularly for the church. The Ghana Catholic Bishops' Conference has for many years spoken about this partnership, engaged the government on numerous occasions to work on the details, and not infrequently expressed frustration about the lack of commitment from the government, albeit always with a sense of hope. On November 9th, 2007, for instance, the conference issued a press statement signed by its president, in which the bishops strongly opposed the lack of goodwill on the part of the state. They disagreed with how the government, through unilateral educational reforms and decisions, was working to erode trust in the partnership between the church and the state in education delivery. Key issue at the time was the government's systematic effort at edging out religion from education. The bishops called for the immediate inclusion of religion and moral education in the syllabus as a subject on its own, and instructed heads of all Catholic educational institutions, and here I quote, to make religious instruction a compulsory subject to be taught at the beginning of every school day. I don't know if we still do that. Similar sentiments had been expressed a year prior in the Synodal Act of the First Synod of the Archdiocese of Cape Coast, promulgated in November 2006. As these synodal acts are particularly pertinent to our reflection today, I will crave your indulgence to quote substantially from the document. Among other things, it is observed in the Act that the many educational reforms have virtually sidelined religious groups in the management of schools. The Catholic Education Unit has over the years reduced the scope of its oversight of Catholic schools to the basic. And even these, the Catholic Education Unit has virtually no real jurisdiction. The sidelining of religious groups, and so the Catholic Church and her education unit, by the Ghana Education Service in the management of schools, badly curtails the archbishops' and priests' ability to provide for the Catholic upbringing of the people of God entrusted to their care. The current arrangement of partnership with the Ghana Education Service in the provision of schools and education of the citizenry is to the great disadvantage of the church. As we speak, although we continue to be hopeful and continue to engage the government, the formal memorandum of understanding about this partnership is still in limbo. Other challenges include current educational policies, the so-called comprehensive sexual education, and the impact of COVID-19 on the delivery of education. Current educational policies. The current educational policies and practices in Ghana pose a serious threat to Catholic education and schools, and in fact, to education generally. For instance, whereas the free SHS education is a commendable initiative and may benefit a lot of students, its hasty implementation without broad consultation with or adequate input from citizens, particularly from families, religious institutions, and teachers, has resulted in a disruptive delivery of education. It is difficult to follow the different tracks. There have been situations where students have arrived at school and have been asked to return home after just a few days or even a few hours. In some instances, resources are not always promptly provided to allow schools to run smoothly. The toll of this disruption on students, families, teachers, and school administrators is great indeed. Private Catholic schools have also suffered the brunt of the hasty implementation of an otherwise good idea. Comprehensive sexual education. We should not forget the comprehensive sexual education that reared its ugly head in our education system recently. There is no doubt that this injurious and destructive ideology comes right from the desk of the global actors pushing LGBTQ+ down the throat of everybody they care to influence: individuals, families, religious bodies, and nations. The goal is to subvert time and tested understanding of the human person and of family life as attested to by natural reason and divine revelation. The LGBTQ+ community is not satisfied with tolerance. It is not even satisfied with acceptance. Members of the community will not rest until all values are defined in light of the rainbow, which is their symbol. It hurts me that they chose a symbol from the Bible to use as their symbol, the rainbow. And education is their sure vehicle for this agenda. Many religious institutions have already fallen prey to the insidious agenda and succumbed to the global pressure. The Catholic Church and Catholic schools have not been spared the fight. Anybody who followed the two-part synod on the family can attest to the struggles within the church to address the LGBTQ question. In other contexts, such as in the US, The LGBTQ plus ideology has infiltrated Catholic education and, in some cases, dominated discussions on Catholic philosophical and theological understanding about the human person and about the family. Many Catholic schools organize the so-called safe zone training for students, staff, and faculty to learn about how to treat members of the LGBTQ community with respect and advocate for their rights. In most cases, the content of such trainings does not only sideline church teaching, but also openly opposes it. In my view, this anthropological conundrum is one of the greatest threats to the formation of young minds. The church in Ghana and in the Archdiocese of Cape Coast cannot take this for granted. It is reassuring that the Ghana Bishops' Conference, as well as the representatives of the Laity Council, have responded swiftly to the so-called comprehensive sexual education. We entreat the bishops to keep their foot on the accelerator and help create proactive rather than reactive approach to strengthening our educational institutions against such destructive influence. COVID-19 and the delivery of education. COVID-19 has changed the landscape of education delivery. The pandemic, which stopped the world in its tracks and is still raging, has exposed several weaknesses in our educational system. It has also, however, forced the issue of considering in a more serious way the role of technology in education. The pandemic forced a near universal closure of schools at all levels. UNESCO suggests that as of mid-April 2020, at least 1.6 million students had been affected by the closures. More closures happened after that report, and the once thought temporary situation extended beyond anybody's imagination. Students stayed at home much longer than had been expected. The prolonged closures most likely have led to substantial losses in learning. Some students may even have difficulty returning to school. Others may never return. The best way to deliver education is through in-person, face-to-face teaching and learning. However, the COVID has shown us that online digital education cannot be avoided. Online learning, blended learning, and flipped classrooms, which used to be a priority for mostly nations or countries with easier access to technology and much stronger internet connectivity, have now become for all affected nations, including developing nations, serious alternatives for the delivery and accessing of education. The need for education systems to become resilient through online learning options has not been more urgent. In the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, no institution or stakeholder in education can make decisions without a serious consideration of the role of technology in education. The renewing of the mission of education in the Archdiocese of Cape Coast cannot avoid this reality. Summary of Part 1 and 2. The mission of Catholic education is tied to the mission of the Church, namely, to proclaim the gospel. Catholic schools have an obligation to provide academic excellence, build character through sound religious and moral education, and prepare people for true service in society and in the Church. Catholic schools need to be authentically Catholic in order to carry out this mission. There are many challenges that militate against this mission. However, for the over 2,000 years of its existence, of her existence, the Catholic Church has not been stopped in her mission. She has always been aided by grace and the power of the Spirit to forge ahead. We must do the same in our circumstance regarding Catholic education in the Archdiocese of Cape Coast. We must find points of renewal and press on. This brings us to part 3. How can we renew the mission? I highlight 5 thoughts for our consideration. 1, a renewed focus on the human person, who alone is the object of true education. 2, the consideration of Catholic education as a synodal event. 3, Catholic education as a means to overcome poverty. 4, a renewed appreciation for what we have and a desire for a brighter future. 5, listening to voices from the first synod. Commercial break. I'm wondering whether you are applauding that it is commercial break or whether you are applauding that he should be done by now. So commercial break, now we come back. 1, a renewed focus on the human person. In a number of his speeches to educational professionals, Archbishop John Kojo Emisa of blessed memory called for a renewed focus on the human person, who alone is the subject of true education. This is the beginning for the renewing of mission for Catholic education in the Archdiocese and in Ghana. It is very tempting to focus on the politics, mechanisms, and results of education, and in the process, forget the human being at the heart of the endeavor. Pope Francis calls it the dictatorship of results. It considers the people as object, as means to an end, and has no interest for their difficulties, errors, dreams, or liberty. We have seen in Ghana educational reforms and policies that betray a ferocious pursuit of political gains and a lack of some substantive reflection on the learner as a true human being with intrinsic dignity and intellectual capacity. We are witnesses to a delivery of education that places undue emphasis on preparing learners for an examination rather than for life. An approach of this kind leaves very little room for the true formation of minds and hearts. In such a dispensation, it is very easy to downplay or even sideline educational opportunities for the formation of the person, as evident in the sidelining of religious and moral education. Learners may leave school with good results, but may be spiritually and morally empty. The consequences are the kinds of leadership and attitudes that continue to plunge us into the sea of corruption. The offering of Catholic education must resist this product-oriented and technocratic temptation. To use the words of Pope Francis, Catholic education must focus on building a civilization of love for a new humanism. Catholic schools, according to the Holy Father, must contribute to the teaching of the values of solidarity, humanism, and the safeguarding of our common home. Second point for consideration, Catholic education as a synodal event, working with the young people entrusted to our care. Educating children is a synodal event, from the Greek synodia, meaning journeying in company or company of travelers, a caravan, a large group of people traveling together. The term appears in Luke chapter 2, verse 44. The context is Luke's infancy narratives. In this account, Jesus and his parents follow the custom of going up to Jerusalem for the feast of Passover. He was 12 years old. After the feast, as they were traveling back, Jesus remained in Jerusalem. However, his parents thought he was in the caravan, SYNOD. They journeyed for a day and looked for him among their relatives and acquaintances. Addressing this text to young people, Pope Francis comments on Jesus' opportunity to interact with a wider family. Because of the trust of his parents, Jesus can move about freely and learn to journey with others. Hence, the parents' assumption that he was in the caravan and most likely in the company of relatives and friends. Offering Catholic education as SYNOD therefore allows children to travel in the company of others with whom they can explore their life experiences, faith, and true identity as God's beloved children, including their family members and friends, teachers and school communities, as well as priests and faith communities. Education as SYNOD rests on trust and commitment. We need to ask whether our children in our Catholic schools trust us enough to allow us to journey with them. To what extent are we committed to their intellectual, spiritual, psychological, and material well-being? Do we also trust the students enough to listen to them in matters concerning their own education? Third point for consideration: educating to overcome poverty. The Church's vision of education entails a preferential option for the poor. This is why the Church establishes a lot of schools in the peripheries, especially among the poor. Most of our students are from families that struggle with generational and many times devastating poverty. Can Catholic education in the Archdiocese of Cape Coast address this problem head-on? How would Catholic education in the Archdiocese look like if we incorporated this idea into our delivery of education? Yesterday, I think the opening session, in the speech delivered on her behalf, the Central Regional Minister invited different stakeholders to partner with her office to seek innovative strategies that can create jobs for the youth, strategies to change lives and create prosperity. I believe that her invitation speaks to the idea of educating to overcome poverty. Can the Archdiocese of Cape Coast be on board? And what will she bring to the table? Fourth point to consider: a renewed appreciation for what we have and the desire for a brighter future. There are over 500 Catholic schools in the Archdiocese of Cape Coast and over 2,000 teachers at the basic level alone, as the Archbishop mentioned at the opening ceremony. We need a change of attitude towards these schools and the teachers we have. We need to celebrate what we have. Our attitude must be one of gratitude. We can, for instance, promote the celebration of Catholic Education Week in the Archdiocese of Cape Coast. We can establish the Best Catholic Teacher of the Year award and the Best Administrator of the Year award at different levels of our education. We need especially a renewed appreciation for the work of the religious congregations in education. They have been at the forefront in the establishment of Catholic schools in the Archdiocese. We must thank them profusely, support them unreservedly, and promote their work throughout the Archdiocese. Appreciation for our schools also means greater care. We need creative ways to take care of schools. Some schools have not seen repairs and painting in years. The environment of some of these schools is not attractive and sometimes not healthy. Many schools do not have a decent place for teachers to gather for their work, a kind of a teacher's lounge. What creative measures can we put in place to ensure greater care for these schools? D, let us also celebrate the great opportunities we have as an archdiocese to bring the Catholic ethos to different non-Catholic and public educational institutions. The two most successful efforts are those found in our chaplaincies at UCC and UEW. At the University of Education, for instance, more than 1,200 students attend Mass every Sunday. We have 5 Masses. This is a great opportunity. At the UCC, the number is about 800. We need to work harder, not just to maintain, but to expand ministry. We need similar effort in other non-Catholic institutions where we have presence. E, renewed appreciation also entails breaking new grounds. We must encourage the establishment of new Catholic schools in the Archdiocese. I have heard a few people talk about the establishment of a new Catholic College of Education in the northern part of the Archdiocese. Can we look into this idea with courage? We should not allow the need for resources to prevent us from thinking about the possibility of such a college and actually working towards its realization, if indeed we find the need for it. 5th point for consideration comes from the voices of the people, from the First Synod. The things we are talking about today have been on the minds of many people for many years, including on the collective mind of the Archdiocese. Permit me, therefore, to reiterate some of the recommendations on Catholic education from the First Synod. These recommendations are contained in the Synodal Act, which were promulgated in November 2006. I call them the voices of the people who have to be listened to and heard in the spirit of synodality. 1. The Archbishop, together with the bishops of Ghana, is requested to make greater effort to have Catholic schools returned to the church. 2. The Archdiocesan Educational Committee, an Archdiocesan Educational Committee, should be set up to advise the Archbishop on the management and running of Catholic schools. 3. An education fund may be set up for infrastructure development or engagement of staff. 4. The faithful are urged to foster Catholic schools by supporting their establishment and their maintenance. 5. In keeping with the Church's right to establish and manage schools, the Archbishop must have a real say in the running of the schools. 6. The Archbishop is to ensure that the Catholic identity of these schools is restored and maintained. To this end, we suggest, as the Synod, we suggest that the Archbishop should have the Chancellor or the head role of the Catholic schools in the Archdiocese. And 7, the Archbishop must ensure that Catholic religious education is imparted to the learners in the Catholic schools in the Archdiocese. These synodal recommendations were endorsed for implementation. We need to ask the obvious question: how far have we gone with their implementation? There will be similar and new recommendations about Catholic education in the Archdiocese at this second synod. We must be ready to help the Archbishop in his effort to translate the ideas into actions. Conclusion: getting the Catholic identity of our schools right. We began this discussion with a focus on the Catholic identity of our schools. I would like to end on that same note, this time around speaking to how we can get our identity right. A story is told of a CEO, man who founded his own company. At some point, he wanted to bring about reforms. He wanted to transform his company. He thought about it for a long time. He spoke to a lot of friends. He spoke to a lot of colleagues to have new ideas. On the weekend before he rolled out his plan to his staff, he brought his plan home, his script home, to go over and to put finishing touches to that. He needed some quiet and some time. So he went into his study and he closed the door behind him. A short while, the wife came and said, "Honey, I need to go to the store to get a few things for the house. Can you take care of our son?" He was not happy, but he could not avoid that duty. After all, he was a father and a husband first, before a CEO. So he accepted to take care of the son. But in his wisdom, he wanted to still carry on his task, even though his son, was likely to disturb him. So he found a way to occupy his son. He looked through a magazine and saw the map of the world. He tore that, and then he tore that into pieces and threw it on the ground and told his son, "If you can put the map of the world together, I will give you a sum of money." He was very sure that the son didn't know the map of the world, didn't know where countries are or anything like that. And so the son will spend a long time doing this and will not succeed. And maybe the wife will come and still meet the son doing that. Meanwhile, he could do his work. So he gave the son that work and went back to his study. A very short while, the son came back dancing with joy. "Dad, I have fixed the map of the world." The father was puzzled. "How did you do that?" The son said, "Well, I figured I did not know the map of the world, but I saw a man at the back of the pieces. And so I decided to put the man together because I know a man." And I figured that if I could put the man together, I certainly will be able to put the map of the world together. My dear friends, this son thought that if he could get the man right, he would get the world right. If we get the man right, we will get our Catholic education right. And here I speak of the man Jesus, who gave us the mandate to proclaim his message of salvation to the world. If we get Jesus right, we will get the Catholic identity of our schools right. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Father Tony. As we said, the church and education, they are two sides of the same coin. There's no way you can take one and avoid the other. So we will get the man right.
I really do not know where to start or end. He's really given us a load of thoughts, food for thought. We've learned so much from him. And through that, probably we might have one or two questions to ask. So the floor is open for some few questions. Probably the first three he will tackle, then we move on from there. Thank you.
So those who want to ask questions, we have three chairs here. Please come and occupy them, and I'll start with you. Three chairs here. So take one of the chairs. But I will take three, and then you react to that. And then after that, we go to the next.
Thank you. Please, Reverend, I am beginning to believe that the name Karuk just exists by name in our Cairo schools. This is because the state took over our schools the very year the church handed over the administration or management of our schools to them. Now, the running of our schools has become a sole responsibility.
Slowly, slowly. Would you mind starting again? Yes, please.
Okay, Reverend. Okay. I am beginning to believe that the name Karuk just exists by name in our Cairo school. This is simply because the state took over our schools the very year the church handed over the administration or management of our schools to them. Now, the running of our schools has become a sole responsibility of the state. So therefore, I want to ask, what role does the church play to boast that we have mission schools in Ghana?
He was going to ask a similar question, so thank you, that is taken care of. Any other question? Okay, then please, Father, you may react to this.
I do agree with you in terms of what is happening in terms of the statement you made. The Catholic exists only by name. I wouldn't say so. We do have great challenges, but I wouldn't say the Catholic attached to our schools that it's only by name. We have to look at the different schools that we have and the different opportunities of how Catholic education continues to impact society. Even today, even in the schools that we count or we see as not being as strong as they used to be. Yesterday, our chairperson in a conversation with her said we should be careful not to live on borrowed glory, right, past glory. So there is the real challenge going on. We've lost a lot of ground in a number of ways, but we still have the impact that continues to make people still want to come to Catholic institutions for education. We can't overlook that. We also have to understand the changing nature of our circumstance in terms of how education has changed in different ways, and then match our effort to the changes, not just to abide by what goes on, but to challenge that and to really continue to make even more impact. So I wouldn't call our schools Catholic only in name. However, I will say we have a lot of work to do.
Thank you, Father. Any more questions? The next set of questions, please. Please come forward. If you have a question, please come forward.
Thank you. In your presentation, Father, you talked about our influence in the non-Catholic schools, and that we should think of innovative ways of entering those places so that we can take care of our own who are there, if I understood you well, and also make an impact there. I wonder how we can do that, because in our own schools already, from my little experience, the population in our own schools of Catholics has dwindled, which means our own people are not even attending our own schools. They prefer to choose other schools rather than our own schools. Right? I'm talking from my experience. And when the others come in, even our own sometimes do not want to identify themselves. So my questions are two. How do we work to consolidate what we have? Secondly, how do we work to be able to enter into those grounds where we are not the owners, and to take care of our own and have an influence? Thank you.
Okay. Are you okay, Father? Can we go to the next person? Okay.
Thank you. My question is to find out why there's dynamics in the Catholic institutions in terms of grooming teaching the Catholic practices. Let's say the praying of the Angelus and observance of some religious occasions. It varies across the Catholic institutions. And can that be maintained so that anybody who gets the opportunity to be in the Catholic institution also would be groomed with the Catholic teachings? And also, I want to find out how we benefit as a church when we give out our institutions to government. Because having the opportunity to know what goes into it, it is almost zero benefit to the church. The government takes almost everything, including the land. So why do we give it out? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So we'll take the third one.
Thank you. Please, Sister, drew my attention to something. That the Catholic schools, it seems the Catholics itself, or the Catholics are refusing to even go to the Catholic school. I want to know if there is a quota for the Catholics, so that imagine we are based on the government doing this, assigning people to various schools. But do Catholics have a quota that is reserved for Catholics, so that even at all, when people are recruited into our various schools, there is a chance for the Catholics also to get a place? Thank you.
Thank you very much for the questions. I'll begin with influence in non-Catholic schools. I think it's a two-part question there. Influence in non-Catholic schools, and therefore also talking about the dwindling of Catholic population in Catholic schools. I do not have the statistics, but I know that this problem probably is not only a problem for the Archdiocese or for Ghana. I have witnessed in some contests, particularly in the U.S. context, in the school, for instance, where I taught for a few years, that when you come to the school, and it was a Catholic university, that the Catholic population of the school is just about 20%. The rest are non-Catholic. And it is not the only school, Catholic school. However, when it comes to the basic level, or the grade level they call it, they insist that they have a lot of Catholics. In fact, they recruit Catholics for Catholic schools. And the market, it is one of competition. So in fact, they are forced to go and look for the Catholics to come to Catholic schools, because if they don't, they will not have people in their schools. We probably don't have or haven't opened up to such recruitment, to be forceful, to go out and recruit people, Catholics, to come to Catholic schools. And then also to make the situation conducive enough for them to come. When Catholic education becomes too expensive, parents don't want to come. I'm using too expensive. I'm not saying expensive. Too expensive, they may not want to come. Can we make the condition such that they can come? And that we can also, through our Catholic institutions, continue to reach the poor. The aspects of our influence in non-Catholic schools, how can we, I think we're already there. What I was calling for is strengthening our effort. What I will suggest is that we do not, for instance, we have second cycle institutions, non-Catholic institutions, where we have entry or we have access to minister to the Catholics there. Can we have a framework that cuts across, not just a chaplain by chaplain or individual deciding how they want to be, how they want to do things, but can there be some kind of framework so that throughout the archdiocese we know that our non-Catholic institutions having Catholic students, that we can go there and make the impact. I don't know if for the tertiary institutions, for instance, I think that they can liaise with the two universities, the chaplaincies, and then have a true dialogue as to how can we move the tertiary institutions together, not just UCC alone or UEW alone, but all the tertiary institutions. Can we have some framework to move us forward? The next question is, why is there no uniformity in our religious practices in our schools? That you go to different Catholic schools and there are different practices. I wouldn't be able to answer that question except to call for uniformity. I don't know the reason why we don't. I think maybe we haven't set things up well, that individuals do as they please. And thanks be to God that in some cases they have the goodwill to uphold the Catholic presence and faith. And so uniformity may help. The question as to why do we give our schools to the government, that one I think is beyond my pay grade. I don't think I will be able to answer that question. So, except to say that the partnership that we hope for was something that was going to be profitable to the church as well as to the state. That's all I can say about that one. And then any quota for Catholics in our Catholic schools, presently, I don't think so. Can we have that? I think it depends on the partnership that we are talking about, or it depends on us taking our schools back. Thank you.
Thank you, Father. Yeah. So we are just at the nib of time. So, as usual, we would say if you have other questions, please write them out and hand them over to the secretaries. Otherwise, if there's anything else that might also come, questions from the group report. Now, I wouldn't like to thank you, because if I do, it will mean that you can go. But I would want you back when we return for the report. So I will not thank you yet. But you have done a good job. Thank you all the same.
I have not said anything. What I want you to do is to offer suggestions for action. Don't tell me the challenges and the problems. You tell me, what do you think as laity we must do? As religious we must do? As this we must do? Because we are a church. The bishops are not the only church. The children are ours. They are in your homes. So what do we do, you as parents? How do you want to do, what do you want to do so that we need answers? I hope you understand that. Because we are easily put, I can give you answers to all the problems you have put out. And I can give you where we are trying to. But we need to hear you. And give me the fact that, Archbishop, this is what we, the laity, think we must do. And this is what we are going to do. Then I will know what we can do. Otherwise, the impression is we are only talking problems. Nobody is talking answer from their point of view. It's my child. I want my child in the Catholic school. What must I do to get my child there by hook or by crook? It is our school. It is in our parish. What must we do as parishioners to ensure that our Catholic schools are well maintained? The windows are not falling apart. The desk and please give me, I hope you understand that. Don't tell me the problems. Give me answers. That's why we are here.
Thank you very much, Your Grace. Very soon we'll break into the group discussions. But please, when you go, we would like you to note this. We don't expect the priest to talk a lot at the group discussions. We are to listen. So the suggestions should come from you. The priests are there because we have to be there. Okay, so please, don't talk too much. Secondly, we've tried to provide you with water. But imagine if you empty the bottle and you leave it here for me. It will take me 3 years to gather all of them. But if you finish and you take it along, when you are going to the dining hall, you take it there. Our incinerator is very close to the dining hall, so that from there it is easy for us to dispose of them. But if you leave it here, it will give me a lot of work that I will not be able to finish today. So please, don't leave the bottles on the ground here. Take them along. And don't throw them anywhere outside. No, please. Thank you. As usual, the group leaders will go to the desk and the questions, and then we'll be able to break into the discussion. So let us stand and pray so we can move. We fly to thy patronage, O most holy Mother of God. Despise not our prayers and our necessities, but deliver us always from all dangers, O glorious and ever blessed Virgin Mary. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Thank you.